I can still hear the ripping sound echoing in my ears. That horrible tearing noise, like a knife cutting into my heart. My daughter's hands pulled at the delicate lace, the sparkling beads scattering across the hardwood floor of her living room like tiny broken stars. And then she laughed. "You call this a wedding dress?" she sneered, her voice sharp, her eyes cold. "This is what an old-fashioned woman like you thinks is fashion? Mom, you don't know anything about style. You should have just stayed out of it." I froze. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought the neighbors might hear it. The dress had cost me more than $2 million. I had handpicked it from one of the most exclusive bridal designers in New York. It was my gift to her, my way of showing her, after all the years of struggle, sacrifice, and love, that she deserved the best. And yet, here she was ripping it apart. Piece by piece, bead by bead. I wanted to scream, to grab her wrists, to stop her. But I stood there, paralyzed, watching my own daughter destroy not just fabric, but years of trust, love, and everything I thought we shared. She tossed the shredded sleeve to the floor and looked at me with a smirk. "Don't you ever try to make decisions for me again. You're outdated, Mom. You don't belong in my world anymore." Her words cut deeper than her hands tearing that dress. I felt something shift inside me that day. A quiet storm, silent but deadly. She thought she had humiliated me. She thought I would go home, cry into my pillow, and accept my place as the old, useless mother. But she had no idea. No idea what I was about to do. No idea that the woman she called irrelevant still held the kind of power that could make her regret this moment for the rest of her life. And as I stood there, my hands trembling, my throat tight with unshed tears, one thought replayed in my mind. She will regret this. She has no idea who her mother truly is. My name is Margaret Hollingsworth. I am an 82-year-old retired art historian, once working at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. My hair is white now, but once it was blonde, golden like wheat in the summer sun. I used to be called beautiful in my youth, but beauty fades. What doesn't fade is the strength you build from pain, sacrifice, and survival. I raised my only daughter, Claire, almost entirely by myself. Her father, my husband, was a Wall Street man, always more married to his work than to me. When he finally left us for a younger woman, I decided that I would give Claire everything he refused to. And I did. Every ballet class she asked for. Every piano lesson. Every private school with the tuition fees so high I had to sell pieces of jewelry my own mother left me. When she wanted to study fashion design in Paris, I poured my savings into her education. I skipped my own retirement comforts so she could live her dream. I thought she would love me for it. I thought she would remember that when life was hard, I bent until I broke just to make her happy. But now, watching her sneer at me, calling me old-fashioned, tearing apart the gown I had flown across the ocean to get, I realized something I had never wanted to admit. My daughter didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as an obstacle. The day had begun with so much hope. I remember walking into the boutique where the dress was displayed. The designer himself shook my hand. The silk shimmered under the soft lighting, every stitch done with precision, every pearl sewn with care. I thought of Claire, my Claire, walking down the aisle in this masterpiece. I thought of the gasps from the guests, the way her husband-to-be would look at her in awe. It was supposed to be a moment of pride, a mother's gift to her daughter. But Claire hadn't even thanked me when I first showed it to her. She had frowned, said it wasn't modern enough, said I wasted money. Still, I thought she'd come around. I thought when she tried it on, she would see what I saw, a vision of elegance. Instead, she tore it apart before my eyes. I remember sinking into the armchair in her living room after she was done. The beads glittered on the carpet like fallen tears. Claire went back to scrolling on her phone as though nothing happened. "Mom, just stay out of my wedding, okay? You'll embarrass me." Her words stabbed me deeper than any knife. Embarrass her? Me? The same woman who had carried her when she was sick at 9 years old, rushing her to the ER in the middle of the night. The same woman who skipped meals to make sure her school tuition was paid. The The same woman who worked late into her 70s, giving lectures to college students so Claire could have her Parisian dreams. Now I was in embarrassment. I sat there quietly, my palms pressed against my knees, my breath shallow. And then, something inside me hardened. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her glossy blonde hair, curled perfectly. Her diamond earrings glinting under the light. She looked like me once, but colder, harder. And I realized she didn't know me anymore. Not the real me. She thought I was just some old woman who would sit in silence and accept humiliation. But she forgot that in my world, in my prime, I held influence, connections, and, most importantly, control over money she had no idea about. Money that could make or break the wedding she thought was hers to own. And in that moment, I made a decision. I would not cry. I would not beg. I would not let her win. If she wanted war, she was about to see what her mother was capable of. But let me rewind a little. Because for you to understand the fire burning inside me that day, you need to know the full story of Claire and me. The highs, the lows, the endless sacrifices, and the bitter truth of how love can twist into something unrecognizable. It began years ago, long before the dress. When she was little, Claire was my shadow. She would run into my arms after school, curl up beside me in bed when thunderstorms scare her. She would whisper secrets into my ear, pinky promise never to leave me. She was my world. But as she grew older, the world outside began to change her. The friends she kept, the schools she attended, the luxury she was exposed to, all of it shaped her into someone who saw me less as a mother and more as outdated baggage. I tried to keep up. I learned about her favorite designers, watched the shows she liked, tried to speak the language of her generation. But no matter how hard I tried, I was always old-fashioned. And the older she got, the harsher she became. The dress was only the final straw. As I sat in that chair, staring at the ruined fabric, I thought back to one night in particular. She must have been around 15. She had screamed at me in front of her friends, telling me I didn't understand anything about her life. I had gone to bed that night crying quietly into my pillow, but still, the next morning, I made her breakfast, kissed her cheek, and told her I loved her. I always forgave. But forgiveness has limits. That day with the dress, she crossed mine. When I finally stood up from that chair, my legs felt steadier than I expected. My hands stopped trembling. "Claire," I said softly, almost too softly. She didn't look up from her phone. "What now, Mom?" I leaned down, picked up one of the torn lace pieces from the carpet, and folded it gently in my hand. Then I looked her straight in the eye. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." She laughed. "Oh, please, Mom. Don't be so dramatic." But if only she knew. If only she knew what I had already decided in that moment. The thing I was about to do would shake her world. The thing that would turn her laughter into tears. And as I walked out of her house, clutching that scrap of lace, I whispered to myself, "She will regret this. I'll make sure of it." When I walked out of Claire's house that day, I didn't go straight home. I couldn't. My body carried me, but my mind was somewhere else, swirling with memories, with pain, with anger. The city lights blurred as I drove down Fifth Avenue. All I could see was the shredded lace, the glint of beads bouncing across her floor, and the smirk on my daughter's face. The world outside looked so normal. People were walking their dogs, couples were laughing in cafes, yellow cabs honked in the distance. But inside me, something had shifted permanently. I wasn't the same woman who had entered her house earlier that afternoon. I had entered as a hopeful mother, clutching a gift of love. I left as a mother betrayed, holding scraps of lace like the ashes of my sacrifice. And for the first time in 82 years, I felt dangerous. I should tell you something about myself. People often mistake age for weakness. They look at my white hair, my wrinkled hands, and they assume I've slowed down. But in truth, I've lived long enough to know patience. I've lived long enough to know silence can be a weapon sharper than any knife. And I've lived long enough to know that when people push you to the edge, that's when you discover the strength they never believed you had. Claire forgot that about me. She forgot who I was before I was just Mom. She forgot that Margaret Hollingsworth was once the curator of priceless art collections, trusted with treasures worth hundreds of millions. She forgot that my judgment, my taste, my eye for beauty wasn't something out of a fashion magazine. It was something respected in the world's greatest museums. And now, my own daughter called me old-fashioned. She tore apart my gift like it was garbage. That was the moment she lost the mother who always forgave. But the thing about betrayal is, it rarely comes all at once. Looking back now, I can see the little cracks that led to this moment. When Claire was younger, she used to adore me. She'd run into my arms after school, her golden hair bouncing, her blue eyes sparkling with mischief. I can still hear her voice, little and sweet, whispering, "Mom, you're the best in the world." But somewhere between teenage rebellion and adult pride, she changed. The first time she truly embarrassed me was when she was 16. I had gone to one of her fashion shows at school. She had sewn a dress herself, and though it wasn't perfect, I was so proud I clapped the loudest in the room. But afterward, she pulled me aside, her face red with anger. "Mom, why do you always have to be so extra? Everyone was staring at you. You looked ridiculous." I remember standing there, frozen, wondering how my applause, my love, could be ridiculous. But I swallowed my hurt and said nothing. It was the beginning of a pattern. I gave. She took. I praised. She criticized. I sacrificed. She demanded more. And I always forgave. Until now. That night, after the dress incident, I went home and sat in my study. My home was quiet, filled with the faint ticking of the antique grandfather clock by the fireplace. I lit a small lamp, its glow soft against the walls lined with books and photographs. One photo caught my eye. Claire at 5 years old, wearing her first recital tutu. She had been so proud of herself that day, twirling in circles until she got dizzy. I had cheered so hard I nearly lost my voice. Tears stung my eyes. How had that little girl grown into the cold, dismissive woman who mocked me today? Was it my fault? Did I spoil her too much? Did I give too much until she thought love was something she could tear apart like fabric? The questions burned inside me, but beneath them, something darker brewed. Not guilt. Not sadness. Determination. She wanted to humiliate me. She thought I was powerless. She had no idea what I was capable of. The next morning, I received a call from the wedding planner. "Mrs. Hollingsworth," she said cautiously, "I just wanted to confirm the payment schedule for the wedding venue. As you know, the deposit has been made, but the remaining balance is due in 3 weeks." My heart thudded. The wedding venue. The one Claire bragged about nonstop, the most prestigious estate outside Manhattan, booked months in advance. She had told everyone she would have the most lavish wedding of the season. And guess who paid the deposit? Me. Because despite everything, despite her sharp words and colder heart, I still wanted to give her the best. But now I had a choice. "Yes," I said slowly into the phone, my lips curving into a smile no one could see. "I'll be handling that. Don't worry. You'll be hearing from me soon." I hung up, my fingers lingering on the receiver. Claire thought tearing a dress was her victory. But she had no idea that in her arrogance, she had placed her entire future in my hands. But I wasn't ready to strike yet. Revenge, I knew, wasn't about rushing. It was about timing. It was about watching your opponent believe they had won, right before you pulled the ground out from under them. So I waited. I went about my days as if nothing had happened. I had lunch with friends, walked in Central Park, even attended a small gallery showing. But every night, I sat in my study, thinking, planning, replaying Claire's smirk in my mind until my hands curled into fists. And each night, I whispered to myself, "Patience, Margaret. Patience." A week later, Claire called me. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. "Mom," she said, "you know I've been thinking, maybe I overreacted the other day. I shouldn't have been so harsh. It's just, the wedding is so stressful, and I'm under so much pressure, you know." I listened in silence. She continued quickly, "But I still need you. There are payments coming up, and I know you promised to help. I can't do this without you." I almost laughed. Almost. So she didn't call to apologize. She called because she needed money. I leaned back in my chair, letting her words wash over me. She thought I was still the same mother who would bend, who would break, who would do anything to keep her happy. But this time, I wouldn't. This time, I would let her believe she had me in her grasp, before I showed her the truth. Of course, darling, I said gently, keeping my voice calm. Don't worry. Everything will be taken care of. Her sigh of relief was almost insulting. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. If only she knew. But that wasn't the most shocking part of the week. 2 days later, I received a message from an old friend, an attorney I had known since my days at the museum. He had attended a dinner where Claire had been present, and apparently, she had been talking. She was bragging about how she has you wrapped around her finger, he told me. Said you're too old to know better. That you'd pay for everything no matter how she treated you. She even joked about how you wasted money on that dress she tore up. My hands trembled as I held the phone. So she wasn't just cruel in private. She was mocking me publicly. At that moment, something inside me snapped. She wasn't just ungrateful. She was arrogant. And arrogance deserves consequences. That night, I sat at my desk again, pen in hand. But this time, I wasn't journaling. I was signing papers. Papers that would change everything. Papers that would remind Claire that she may think I'm old-fashioned, but I still hold power. She had no idea that the woman she humiliated was about to pull the strings of her entire wedding, her entire future. And she would never see it coming. But just when I thought I had everything under control, something happened that shook me to my core. The next morning, as I prepared to leave my house, I saw it, an envelope slipped under my front door. My heart raced as I bent to pick it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper, with words scrawled in bold letters. Stay away from the wedding, old woman. This isn't your place. I froze. The handwriting wasn't Claire's. It wasn't her fiancé's either. It was someone else's. Someone who clearly wanted me gone. When I first read that note, my breath caught in my throat. Stay away from the wedding, old woman. This isn't your place. The words glared at me from the paper, each letter pressed down with such force, I could see the indentation bleeding into the back. Whoever wrote it wanted me to feel the weight of every insult. I stood there by the door, the morning sun streaming in through the window, but instead of warmth, I felt ice crawling across my skin. It wasn't enough that Claire had torn apart the dress, mocked me, and humiliated me. Now, there were others, people in her circle, perhaps even her fiancé's family, who wanted me erased from her life completely. I folded the note with trembling hands, slipped it into my robe pocket, and sat down in my armchair. My chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Old woman. It echoed in my head. It wasn't just an insult. It was an attempt to push me into the shadows, to convince me I had no place in her life anymore. But they didn't know me. They didn't know I've never been one to back away from a fight. All day, I thought about that note. At lunch, my fork hovered above, my salad untouched. At the art club meeting, the conversations blurred into a haze of laughter I couldn't join. That night, lying in bed, the note replayed in my mind like a taunt. Was it her fiancé? His family? One of her so-called fashionable friends who always looked at me like I was furniture? Whoever it was, they had underestimated me. They thought fear would send me scurrying away. Instead, it did the opposite. It ignited a fire in me. The next day, I called Claire. Darling, I said softly, hiding the storm in my voice. I was thinking, maybe you're right. Maybe I should take a step back from the wedding. I don't want to embarrass you. There was a pause. Then, relief flooded her voice. Oh, Mom, I'm glad you finally understand. It's for the best. You can just relax and show up on the day. Leave the rest to us. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. She had no idea I was already pulling strings behind the scenes. Of course, dear, I replied sweetly. Of course. The moment I hung up, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the folder I had signed days earlier, the financial agreements, the cancellation clauses, the deposits I controlled. She wanted me to stay out?
Fine.
I'd step back. but she'd find out soon enough what it costs to cut me off. That evening, I visited the boutique where the dress had once stood in its shimmering glory. The designer himself greeted me, his expression wary. "Mrs. Hollingsworth, I heard about what happened. Your daughter didn't appreciate the gown?" My throat tightened. Appreciate? She destroyed it. His eyes widened. Destroyed? I nodded, forcing down the lump in my throat. But don't worry. She'll regret it. She'll regret every single word she spoke that day. The designer hesitated, then leaned closer. Forgive me for saying this, but you deserve better. If you ever need assistance, my atelier is at your disposal. I smiled faintly. Thank you. I may take you up on that. Because in that moment, a new idea sparked in my mind. If she didn't want my taste, if she thought I was old-fashioned, perhaps I would show her just how much influence and power this old woman still had. Not through screaming, not through pleading, through control. But before I could set everything in motion, another blow came. 3 nights later, I attended a charity gala downtown. I hadn't planned to go, but an old friend insisted. She said I needed to get out of the house and forget my troubles. I should have stayed home. Because as I stood there with a glass of champagne in my hand, I heard laughter behind me. Familiar laughter. It was Claire. I turned slowly, and there she was, draped in a glittering gold dress, her fiancé's arm wrapped around her waist. She looked stunning, radiant, and smug. And then I heard her voice. "Can you believe it?" she was saying to a group of guests. "My mother actually thought she could pick my wedding dress. She spent millions on something that looked like it belonged in a dusty museum. I had to rip it apart in front of her. Honestly, I think she needed to be reminded her time is over." The group roared with laughter. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would burst. My ears burned. I wanted to walk away, to escape, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I stood frozen, listening as my daughter mocked me in public, reducing me to a punchline. And then, her fiancé joined in. "She's too controlling," he said casually, sipping his drink. "Claire's better off without her meddling. This wedding should be about us, not her." The guests nodded. One even whispered, "Poor girl, stuck with such an old-fashioned mother." I felt my fingers tighten around the stem of my glass. I should have shattered it right there. I should have screamed. But instead, I smiled. Because while they laughed, I was already plotting. When I got home that night, I pulled out the threatening note again. I studied the handwriting under the lamplight, the slant of the letters, the pressure of the pen. And suddenly, something clicked. It wasn't random. It wasn't from a stranger. It looked eerily similar to something I had seen before, Claire's fiancé's handwriting. I remembered a thank you card he had once written, the loops and slants almost identical. My stomach dropped. Had he written it? Had he tried to intimidate me, to shove me out of the picture entirely? The thought made my blood boil. It was one thing for Claire to mock me. She was my daughter. My blood. But for him? For this man to think he could erase me? No. Absolutely not. The next day, I made my move. I went to the bank. I sat with the manager, a man who had known me for years, and reviewed the accounts I controlled, the wedding fund, the estate deposits, even the trust one had set aside for Claire. And one by one, I signed papers. Adjusting, redirecting, closing doors she thought were wide open. I walked out of that bank with my head high, the city air crisp against my face. Claire thought I was powerless. She thought I was too old-fashioned to matter. But she was about to discover that everything she was building her dream wedding on rested on me. And I was about to pull it all away. That night, I received another call. "Mrs. Hollingsworth," the wedding planner's voice quivered. We need to talk. There's been a problem with the payments. Unless it's resolved soon, the venue may not hold the date." I smiled into the receiver. "Oh, don't worry," I said sweetly. "It will all be taken care of. But I think it's time Claire learns a lesson about gratitude." The planner hesitated. "Shall I inform her?" "Not yet," I replied. My voice was calm, but my heart thundered with anticipation. "Not yet. Let her think everything is fine. Because soon, very soon, The truth would crash down on her like a storm she never saw coming. But just as I began to feel in control again, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "We warned you once. Stay away, or next time it won't just be words." My hands trembled as I read it, and before I could even react, the sound of glass shattering echoed through my house. I ran to the living room, my chest tight, and there it was. The window, broken, and a brick lying on the carpet. Attached to it was another note. "Final warning." The brick still sits in my mind like it sits on my carpet, heavy, ugly, and threatening. That night, I stood over the shattered glass, my heart thundering. The city lights flickered through the jagged opening of the broken window, and for the first time in years, I felt unsafe. 82 years old, and someone had the audacity to throw a brick through my home. I bent down slowly, my joints stiff, and picked up the second note. "Final warning." My hands trembled, not from weakness, but from rage. Final warning? To whom? I wasn't some stranger they could push aside. I was the woman who had funded everything Claire had, from her education to this very wedding. I was the foundation she stood on, and now, someone thought they could threaten me into disappearing? Not a chance. I didn't call the police that night. I should have, perhaps. Any sensible person would have. But I didn't.
Why?
Because I wasn't ready for outsiders to step in. This wasn't just about safety.
This was about respect.
If I called the police, Claire and her fiancé would laugh behind my back, calling me paranoid, dramatic.
No.
I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, I quietly taped the broken glass with cardboard, cleaned up the mess, and placed the brick on my mantelpiece. A reminder, a warning, a spark. Every time I looked at it, I felt my resolve harden. They wanted war? I would give them a war they could never recover from. The following morning, I dressed deliberately. Not in something plain, but in my navy blue wool coat and my mother's pearl earrings, the ones I hadn't worn since Claire was a child. I wanted to feel strong, untouchable. Then I called my attorney. "Henry," I said firmly, "I need to review my estate plans." Effective immediately. There was a pause on the line. "Of course, Margaret. May I ask?" "No questions," I interrupted. "Just prepare the documents. I'll be there in an hour." When I arrived at his office, Henry adjusted his glasses nervously as I laid out my request. "I want Claire's wedding trust frozen. I want the estate funds redirected. And I want provisions put in place that she cannot access a dime without my signature." His eyebrows shot up. "Margaret, are you sure? That's a bold move. It will certainly upset her." I leaned forward, my voice low but steady.
Good.
Let her be upset. She tore apart a dress worth millions. She tore apart my trust. Now she'll learn that actions have consequences. He nodded slowly, sliding the papers toward me. As my pen scratched across the lines, I felt lighter, powerful. It was no longer just a thought. It was real. Claire thought she had humiliated me, but soon she would discover I had the final say in everything she thought belonged to her. That afternoon, Claire called me again. Her voice was sharp this time, not sweet. "Mom, I just heard from the planner that there's an issue with the payments. What's going on?" I smiled into the receiver. "Oh, darling, don't worry. Everything is under control." "Under control?" she snapped. The venue called me in a panic. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Everyone knows I'm having the most exclusive wedding in the city. I can't have them thinking I don't have the money." I let her rant, let her voice rise. Then I said, softly but firmly, "Perhaps you should have thought about embarrassment before you ripped apart the dress I bought for you." Silence. Then, her laughter, cold and cruel. "Still holding on to that, Mom? You really don't get it, do you? Fashion moves forward. You're stuck in the past. I'll fix this myself." And she hung up. My hand tightened around the phone. So that's how she wanted to play. She thought she could belittle me, control me, dismiss me. But she had no idea that while she scrambled, I had already shut the doors she didn't even know existed. That evening, I decided to pay her a visit. I arrived at her apartment unannounced. When she opened the door, her expression shifted from surprise to irritation. "Mom, what are you doing here?" she asked, folding her arms. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the expensive decor, the designer furniture, the champagne glasses scattered from last night. She lived in luxury, and yet every ounce of it had my fingerprints on it. "I wanted to see you," I said calmly. She rolled her eyes. "Well, you've seen me. Now what?" I studied her face. She had my cheekbones, my eyes, my hair. Only hers was dyed a brighter blonde, styled to perfection. She was me, but without the humility, without the sacrifice. "Claire," I said slowly, "do you even realize what you've become?" Her brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You mock me in public. You laugh at my sacrifices. You call me old-fashioned, irrelevant. And now you let others threaten me." Her eyes widened, just for a flicker.
She knew something.
"What are you talking about?" she said quickly. Too quickly. I reached into my bag and pulled out the note. I held it up, watching her face. The color drained from her cheeks. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "It was thrown into my home, along with a brick." Her eyes darted, her jaw clenched. And that's when I knew. She wasn't surprised by the threat. She already knew. "Claire," I said quietly, my voice trembling with rage, "did you know about this?" She turned away, her arms crossed. And in that moment, my heart shattered. She didn't deny it. I walked out of her apartment without another word. My chest ached, my legs felt weak, but my mind was sharper than ever. She knew. She let it happen. And now, there was no going back. That night, as I sat in my study, staring at the brick on my mantelpiece, I made my decision. It wasn't just about freezing accounts or teaching her a lesson anymore. It was about reclaiming my dignity. She thought she could silence me. She thought she could erase me. But I was about to show her, her fiancé, and everyone else who dared laugh at me, that Margaret Hollingsworth was not to be underestimated. The next morning, I made one phone call. Just one. It was to someone Claire had no idea I still kept in touch with. Someone she would least expect. As the phone rang, my hand was steady. When the voice answered, I said calmly, "It's Margaret. I need your help. And trust me, this is going to be something Claire will never forget." There was silence on the line. Then the voice replied, "I always knew you'd call me again. Tell me everything." And that's when my plan truly began. I didn't call the police. I called Nora. Detective Nora Quinn, retired NYPD, our crimes unit, the woman who once spent 3 winters chasing a thief who smuggled Flemish sketches in hollowed-out textbooks. We met a lifetime ago when a donor's collection briefly went missing from the museum. I helped her find the truth without ruining reputations. She never forgot. "It's Margaret," I said when she answered. "I need help. Quiet help." Her voice didn't change, didn't gasp. It warmed by 1 degree. "Tell me where to meet you." We met at a corner diner that still put real butter on toast and poured coffee until your hands stopped shaking. I wore my navy coat and my mother's pearls again. I wanted the weight of history on my skin. Nora slid into the booth with a notepad she never seemed to use. She just watched. Always watching. "Someone threw a brick through my window," I said, placing the note on the formica between us. "Final warning." She leaned in, eyes tracing the grooves of the pen strokes. "Looks like male pressure, right dominant. But I'll confirm." She turned the paper, then looked back up. "This is intimidation. Not random." "I think it's him," I whispered. "Claire's fiancé. Name: Ethan Ward." Her brow lifted a millimeter. "Ward, the boutique investment guy? Blockchain this, green fund that." "Yes," I said quietly. "That one." Nora didn't write it down, but I saw something settle behind her eyes. "You need me to run this quietly," she said. "No official report yet." "Not yet," I said. "If we go official now, it becomes noise. And he'll spin it as a hysterical old woman fearful of shadows. I won't be a prop in a story." Nora half smiled. "Then let's make you the author." She followed me home to see the window, asked measured questions, recorded the brick and the fibers on the tape I had used to hold my night together. She pointed to the hallway outside my apartment. 2 small cameras, she said. Hidden. One above the elevator, one opposite the stairwell. He won't know where he is visible. People make mistakes when they think they're invisible. Give me a week. I may have less than that, I said. The venue balance is due. Her eyes flicked to me. And that touches your other problem. It's all the same problem, I said, and the tremor in my hands finally stopped. 2 mornings later, I sat at my kitchen table with a pad of yellow paper and made a list like I hadn't made since Claire was 8 and needed lunches packed and costumes sewn. But this list wasn't soft. Bank, completed. Trust frozen. Wedding fund signatures redirected. Venue, call Eleanor. Designer, call Aurelian. Nora, surveillance, handwriting comparison, quiet pressure. Wedding planner, keep calm, delay, do not alarm. Backup plan, if Ethan escalates, I escalate louder. I circled Eleanor until the pen dotted the paper. Eleanor Markham, heiress to a shipping dynasty, patron saint of every gala in a 5-mile radius, and the woman who had written the check that saved our medieval wing 22 years ago. More importantly, owner of the Hudson Crest estate, the very venue my daughter bragged about. I called her from the sun-squared corner of my study. She answered on the second ring with the same amused purr that had charmed a dozen mares. Margaret, you ghost, she said. Say you're calling to ask me to lunch, and not to tell me a Titian is fake. I'm calling to ask for something worse, I said. Your discretion. You always had that, she replied. What happened? I told her, not the whole wound, but the shape of it. The torn dress, the public laughing, the brick. I didn't cry. She went very quiet. The date is in my book under your family, she said at last, voice like cut crystal. Everything at Hudson Crest is in my book under your family until you tell me otherwise. A slow breath slid out of me. There may be adjustments. The balance is not paid. And I need an option for repurposing. Meaning I may decide, I said, choosing each word, to turn that day into something that makes her remember who raised her. Eleanor didn't ask what I meant. The old ones never do. They've seen enough to translate pauses. If you give me 48 hours, she said, I can summon any orchestra, any chef, any guest list. If a wedding falls through, a gala appears. Girls See Art would be a good title. She paused. Would you like your name on the program, or do you prefer Fury in italics? I laughed, a short, shocked sound that loosened something iron inside my chest. Italicize it. Done, she said. Send a courier with paperwork. If they haven't paid by Friday at noon, the estate is not theirs. It's yours as always. After I hung up, I called Aurelian DeVoe, the designer who had watched me describe my daughter's shoulders the way other women describe their prayers. He answered in a whisper from a workshop humming with life. Madam Hollingsworth, he breathed. I was wishing you would call. I want you to see what she did, I said. I kept a piece. I set the torn sleeve on tissue and carried it like a wounded bird to his atelier. He lifted it with fingertips that trembled. She tore the alasa, he murmured, not judging, just grieving. He looked at me, at my white hair, my pearls, my hands that knew objects and their meanings. She tore a language you speak. I swallowed. Can it speak again?
His face changed.
Oh, yes. He carried the sleeve to a table and spread it beside photographs of the original pattern. We can phoenix this. A sculpture, perhaps. A dress again, but not for wearing. For witnessing. A piece called Resilience, I said. He nodded, eyes bright. We will stitch the rip with gold. We will make the tear the art. I will have something for you in 6 days, if you allow my team to work through the night. Do it, I said. And Aurelian. I may need it displayed on a very specific date. You'll have it on that date, madam, he said, with the gravity of a vow. Claire's world, meanwhile, spun as if no hands held the axis. Photos of her bridal shower appeared online. Garden, champagne tower, clothes so white they felt like a performance of innocence. I wasn't in a single picture. Under one photo, someone had commented, Is your mom coming? Claire replied with a string of laughing emojis and, "She doesn't get this world. But it's okay. I have a new family now." My throat burned, but I scrolled no further. I did not belong in that sandbox. I belong where paper, stone, and canvas keep their promises. Late that afternoon, the wedding planner called again, voice tight. "Mrs. Hollingsworth, I'm so sorry to keep bothering you, but the florist is asking about the guarantee, and the band is saying." "Hold the line steady," I said gently. "No public cancellations. Tell everyone the mother of the bride is handling the balance, which I am, in my time." She inhaled, a small, grateful sound. "Thank you. And if I may, I know this is none of my business, but your daughter, she's under pressure from him. The fiancé. He's intense." "Keep the tapes of your phone calls," I said. "If anyone bullies you, write down the time and exact words. Specificity is a sword." I hung up and stared at the window where a temporary pain sat like an asterisk in a sentence I refused to end with a period. Somewhere in the hallway, one of Nora's cameras blinked once, invisible to anyone who didn't know where to look. 3 days passed like chess. Nora texted updates that were less words than weather. "Got prints off brick tape. Working match. Sit tight." Then, lifted partials off stair rail. Same glove pattern as from a York Avenue site. Connected to Ward's renovation contractor. He's sloppier than his suits. And then, "Be at home tonight at 10. If we're lucky, mice return to cheese." At 9:53 p.m., I turned off every light but the lamp near the bookcase. I sat with the book open but unread. At 10:11, footsteps, light and hesitant, passed my door. A breath. Then another. Then the tiniest scrape. My phone buzzed. "Nora, we have him on the staircam. Don't move. Don't open. Let him write." The scrape became a whisper. Paper.
Pen.
A hand sliding a note. I could see the edge of it, nudging under my door like an insult that thinks it has manners. I didn't pick it up. Nora's key in the hall lock across from my unit made no sound I could hear, but the door to the stairwell opened and a voice, hers, said, conversational as rain, "Good evening, Mr. Ward." Funny place for a late-night walk. Silence. Then a man's voice I knew from toasts and meaningless speeches at charity dinners, polished, careful. "I think you're mistaken," Ethan said. "I don't know what you're implying." "Implying nothing," Nora said. "I prefer proof. We have you on camera on Tuesday. On Thursday, too. Brick fibers on your cuff last week. Did you mean to borrow from a site your fund invests in? Sloppy accounting." More silence. The kind that chews on itself. "I'd like a lawyer," he said. "You'll get one if we charge you," Nora replied. "That depends on whether you keep pretending old women don't have eyes and friends." Their footsteps faded. My body, finally, remembered how to exhale. Nora knocked softly. I opened the door, and she lifted the new note with a gloved hand into an evidence bag. She showed it to me through plastic. "You're not wanted."
Same hand, she said.
Same pen pressure. "He's not very creative." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we let him stew," she said. "And if he escalates, I stop being quiet." She added, almost as an afterthought, "By the way, you were right. He's upside down financially. Those funds he touts. More sizzle than steak. Marrying your daughter gives him cover, liquidity, and a society page. He can't afford this wedding unless you pay for it." A cold clarity moved through me. Then let him be hungry. The next noon, Eleanor called. "It is Friday," she said brightly, as if announcing spring. "The balance has not arrived. Shall I press the red button?" I looked at my mother's pearls in the mirror, one small chip in the left bead from a day I ran to catch a bus, with a 5-year-old Claire on my hip. A life of running, a life of catching. "Press it," I said. "Consider it pressed," she replied. By Monday morning, Hudson Crest will be hosting Girls See Art, chaired by M. Hollingsworth. On the program, a special installation by Aurélien Deveau titled Resilience, I said. "Oh, perfect," she whispered. "Poetry with teeth." That evening, Claire called, frantic for the first time in months. The varnish on her voice had cracked. Mom, the estate says there's a hold. The planner says vendors are pausing. What did you do? She didn't wait for an answer. Ethan says you're trying to control me again. Is that what this is? You want to embarrass me? After everything I've built. Everything you've built, I repeated softly, my eyes sliding to the stack of receipts with my name on them. Claire, I'm not trying to embarrass you. I'm trying to teach you not to embarrass yourself. She made a sound, half laugh, half snarl. You're jealous. That's what this is. You don't like that I have my own world. I wanted you to have your own world, I said. I paid for the map. The line went dead. I stood in the hush after a storm and steadied the tremor in my chest with an old trick from the galleries. Count frames, not feelings. 1, 2, 3, and the heart slows. On Sunday, Aurelian sent a photo. The torn lace reworked, seams veined with 24-karat thread, beads reset like small constellations against silk the color of forgiveness. The rip was not hidden. It was illuminated, the wound the center of the piece. Resilience, the caption read. Completed. I stared at it until my eyes stung. It was a dress and not a dress. A memory unshredded and reborn as something too strong to wear. I sent it to Eleanor with 2 words, for display. She responded with a little crown. Monday dawned on headlines about markets and mayors, none about daughters and mothers and men who think throwing bricks is a language. The quiet suited me. I do not need the world to know what I know. I only need Claire to learn. At 10, I received a calendar invite from Eleanor's assistant. Polite, precise. Event: Girls' Sea Yard. Date: Saturday, 6 p.m., formerly the Hollingsworth Ward wedding. Location: Hudson Crest Estate. Program note: a special presentation, Resilience by Aurelian DeVoe, commissioned by M. Hollingsworth. I sent no regrets. At noon, Nora texted, "We're moving to formal caution. If he breathes on you, I file." At 2, the planner called, voice near tears. "They're screaming at me," she said. "Ethan says he'll sue the estate, sue me, sue anyone who looks at him. Claire, she's not herself. I don't know what to do." "Breathe," I said. "And document. And if you need a new job after this, call me." She exhaled a laugh that sounded like a person remembering she had lungs. "Thank you." By Friday evening, the city hummed with a rumor it didn't yet understand. Invites had gone out to patrons and principals and girls from programs that teach them lines and light and how to make their hands tell stories. Cars would arrive at the estate at 5:30. Lights would bloom along the ivy walls. Music would thread the hedges. A different kind of vow would be spoken. I placed my mother's pearls on my dresser. I would wear them one more time. At 5 o'clock on Saturday, I stood by the gates of Hudson Crest in a dress not meant to compete with youth, but to crown it, a soft, long sheath the color of evening skies, a wrap against the river air, my hair set simply. I had never felt more like Margaret. Not the mother people could mock. The woman who had built a life out of museums and quiet dignity and the kind of love that pays tuition and pretends not to notice the bruise in its own reflection. Headlights swung up the drive. A cluster of black SUVs. Laughter inside them, the kind you practice in front of a phone screen. Claire's car was in the middle, white flowers tied to the side mirrors as if insisting on a narrative the day no longer honored. The first SUV rolled forward and stopped. The guard, Eleanor's guard, not a rental in a rented suit, stepped to the driver's window and spoke with the tempered kindness of someone trained by people who understand rooms. "I'm sorry," he said, and I could almost hear the script. "Hudson Crest is closed for a private event. You'll need to turn around." The window buzzed down farther. Ethan leaned across the driver, his smile too tight. "We are the private event," he said. "Move the gate." "I'm afraid you are not," the guard replied, glancing to the tablet in his hand. The Hollingsworth War reservation was cancelled on Friday at noon for non-payment. Tonight's event is Girls' Sea Art, chaired by Ms. Hollingsworth. Silence took a shape. Then Claire's car door flew open, and my daughter stepped out in a white suit that wanted to be a dress. Her heels cut an angry rhythm on the gravel. "Mom," she said, voice slicing through the evening. What did you do? Cars behind her idled. Guests for the gala were arriving from the far lane, gliding past in gowns the color of generosity, eyes flicking with polite curiosity. Claire, I said quietly, feeling my hands where they needed to be, at my sides, not shaking. I did what you taught me. And what is that? She demanded, eyes bright with fury and something behind it I couldn't name yet. Fear, maybe, or the first fracture of a mask. That disrespect has consequences, I said. That the person you mock may own the room you're standing in. That throwing bricks at a woman's window doesn't get you a wedding. It gets you a witness. Ethan laughed too loud. You have no proof of anything, Margaret. This is slander. I tilted my head, a museum docent about to illuminate a detail in a painting. I have more than proof, I said. I have friends. A black sedan rolled to a stop behind Claire's car. The back door opened with a click that sounded like a book beginning. A figure stepped out, buttoning a blazer, a badge not shining but very present, her eyes scanning the scene and landing, unblinking, on Ethan Ward. Claire followed my gaze and saw who it was. Her anger changed temperature. Who is that? She whispered, even though she knew. I felt my mother's pearls cool against my collarbone as I turned toward the sedan, relief and resolve moving through me like a tide. That, I said, voice steady, is the last person you ever wanted me to call. Nora Quinn walked toward us, and Ethan took one involuntary step back. Nora Quinn did not hurry. She never had to. She walked up the gravel drive with her shoulders squared, her jaw firm, and the air of someone who had already seen the worst a person could do, and refused to be impressed. Claire stood frozen, her heels sinking into the stones, her eyes darting between me and Nora as though searching for a crack of denial. Ethan, on the other hand, tried to smile. That politician's smile, stretched too wide, teeth flashing like currency. Nora, he said smoothly, extending a hand. What a surprise. What brings you here tonight? Nora didn't even glance at his hand. What brings me here? She said calmly, pulling a small folder from her coat. A string of incidents. A brick through a window. Threat notes. A pattern that happens to match your handwriting and your contractor's gloves. The guests approaching the estate began to slow. Cars idled, their occupants craning necks. The evening's hush was broken by whispers. Is that the fiancé? What's happening? Claire's voice finally broke through, brittle with panic. Mom, this is ridiculous. You brought a detective? To my wedding. Your wedding? I said softly. Look around, Claire. The banners at the gate caught the headlights. Girls See Art. A benefit gala chaired by M. Hollingsworth. A photographer raised his camera, the flash bouncing off the pearls at my throat. Claire's cheeks flushed crimson. This is supposed to be my day, she hissed. You made it your day, I replied, when you tore apart everything I gave you. You made it his day when you let him threaten me in my own home. But tonight? Tonight belongs to the truth. Ethan took a step forward, his charm cracking. Margaret, enough with the melodrama. You're humiliating your daughter. No. Nora cut in, her voice sharp. You're humiliating yourself. You left fingerprints, Ethan. You left fibers. And you forgot that old women don't live alone in silence. We have witnesses. We have proof. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Someone murmured, she threw a brick at her mother's house? Another voice whispered, no, it was him. The fiancé. Claire looked at Ethan, then really looked. And for the first time, doubt clouded her eyes. Is it true? She whispered. He opened his mouth, but Nora held up a hand. Don't answer here. You'll answer in a room where lies have consequences. 2 security guards from the estate approached quietly, flanking him like shadows. Ethan's jaw clenched, his confidence slipping, but he didn't resist. He only glared at me, his eyes like knives. This isn't over, he spat. I smiled faintly. Oh, Ethan. For you, it's just begun. The guards led him away toward the waiting sedan. Guests parted like water around him, some whispering, others recording on their phones. Claire stood alone, trembling, her perfect world unraveling thread by thread. Inside the estate, The gala bloomed like a second dawn. The grand hall shimmered with candlelight, music floated from the string quartet, and girls in simple dresses moved shyly among patrons who greeted them warmly. At the center of the hall stood Aurelian's masterpiece, Resilience. The torn lace reborn with gold, the beads catching light like stars. The wound not hidden but exalted. I walked slowly toward it, the crowd parting as they noticed. Gasps rose, murmurs swelling. Is that the dress? She turned it into art. I stopped in front of it, my hand trembling as I touched the air near the golden seam. It was no longer a gown for a bride who mocked her mother. It was a monument to survival. Eleanor appeared at my side, her hand warm on my arm. Margaret, she said softly, you've done more than teach a lesson. You've created a legend. They'll talk about this night for years. I swallowed hard, my eyes stinging. I didn't want a legend. I only wanted my daughter to respect me. Eleanor squeezed my hand. Sometimes, respect is too small a word. Tonight, you reclaimed dignity. That's greater. But as the music swelled and the gala began, I saw Claire. She stood in the doorway, her white suit stark against the candlelit hall. Her eyes were wide, not with anger this time, but with something I hadn't seen in years, fear. For the first time, she realized she had no control here. Her fiancé was gone, her wedding was gone, her guests had become my witnesses. She took a step forward, her voice low, almost broken. Mom, what have you done? I turned slowly, my spine straight, my pearls glinting in the light. What I should have done years ago, I said. I stopped forgiving. I stopped letting you tear me apart. Tears pooled to her eyes, but pride kept her chin lifted. You ruined everything. No, Claire, I said softly. You ruined everything. I only revealed it. The crowd hushed, the music pausing like a breath held too long. And then Claire's voice, trembling but sharp, cut through the silence. You'll pay for this, Mom. You think you've won, but you don't know what I can do. Her words hung in the air like a curse, and in that moment I knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of another war. The morning after the gala, I woke to the sound of my landline ringing. Not my cell, my old landline, the one only a handful of people even remembered I had. I shuffled to the study, my pearls still resting on the desk where I had placed them the night before, and picked up the receiver. Margaret Hollingsworth? The voice was crisp, professional. This is Linda Shaw from the New York Post. I wanted to confirm a few details regarding the gala at Hudson Crest last night. Specifically, that interruption. My stomach dropped. So it had already begun. I'm not giving statements, I said firmly. She chuckled softly. Oh, Mrs. Hollingsworth, the statements are already out there. Guests are talking. Videos are online. Hashtags are trending. It's only fair you have your say before the story belongs to everyone else. I closed my eyes. So the world would see it now. The brick, the notes, Ethan being escorted away in disgrace, Claire standing in her white suit with tears that weren't bridal but bitter.
Print what you want, I said at last.
But print this too. A daughter who destroys her mother's gift destroys more than fabric. She destroys trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't mend with apologies. I hung up before she could answer. By noon, the headlines had bloomed like weeds. Society wedding cancelled. Mother of the bride pulls the plug. Ward Investments CEO accused in threat scandal. Hudson Crest Gala outshines wedding that never was. Photos of me at the gala in my evening sky dress were everywhere, the pearls gleaming at my throat. Photos of Claire, caught mid-argument at the gates, were next to them. The comments online were vicious. Some pitted her. Most didn't. How do you treat your mom like that? Shameful. The art piece is genius. That dress says everything. If my grandma did this, I'd be proud. Claire's the one who should be embarrassed. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated. But instead, I felt hollow. Because no matter how cruel she had been, she was still my daughter. At 3 o'clock, the knock came. I opened the door to find Claire. Her makeup was smeared, her hair unbrushed, her eyes red and puffy. She pushed past me into the foyer without waiting for an invitation. Do you have any idea what you've done? She shouted, spinning to face me. Yes, I said quietly. You've ruined me. Ethan's lawyers are already pulling out of deals. My friends, her voice cracked, my friends won't answer my calls. Everyone's calling me the girl who couldn't even hold her wedding together. I watched her collapse onto the settee, her sobs racking her body. For the first time in years, she looked less like a woman and more like the little girl who once curled up beside me during thunderstorms. Part of me wanted to hold her. Part of me wanted to let her cry until she finally understood. Instead, I sat opposite her, my voice steady. You did this, Claire. Not me. You let a man use you. You mocked me in public. You tore apart my gift. And when I warned you, you laughed. She lifted her tear-streaked face, her eyes filled with fury. You could have just forgiven me. I forgave you 1,000 times, I whispered. This time, I forgave myself. Her jaw clenched. I'll never forgive you for this. I leaned forward, my hands folded in my lap. Then we are even. The days that followed blurred into chaos. The media frenzy didn't die, it grew. Ethan was subpoenaed over financial irregularities. His investors fled. His name became synonymous with fraud. And though Claire hadn't been charged with anything, she was collateral damage. Every headline tied her to him. Every photo was her face twisted in anger at the gates of Hudson Crest. She stopped calling me. Stopped showing up at my door. Stopped existing in my world. And yet, I felt her everywhere. In the whisper of my neighbors, in the pitying looks of strangers, in the ache in my chest when I walked past her old bedroom. One evening, I sat in that room, surrounded by relics of her childhood, dolls with missing shoes, a scrapbook of ballet programs, the quilt I had sewn from scraps of her baby clothes. I touched the quilt, my tears soaking into the fabric. Where did I go wrong? I whispered to the empty room. But the silence gave no answer. The following week, Nora came by. She stood in my kitchen, sipping tea, her eyes scanning me the way she always did. You don't look triumphant, she said. Because I'm not, I admitted. I wanted her to regret. And she does. But now, so do I. Nora set down her cup. Regret isn't weakness, Margaret. It's proof you still care. But don't confuse regret with reversal. You did what had to be done. I nodded slowly. Still, she's my daughter. Then let her be your daughter, Nora said. But don't let her be your destruction. Her words sank deep, like pebbles into a pond. 2 nights later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Claire. Her voice was hoarse, trembling. Mom? Yes, darling. I whispered, my heart tightening. I need to talk to you. But not at your place. Not mine either. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one will see. I hesitated. Why? Because, she said, her voice cracking, Ethan isn't done. And I think I made a mistake. A big one. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Meet me, she whispered. Please. Before it's too late. And then the line went dead. I stood there with the receiver pressed to my ear, my hands trembling. Too late? What did she mean? And why did her voice sound like she was already running from something I couldn't see? The night Claire called me, I didn't sleep. I sat in my study with the lamp on low and watched the clock crawl from 10 to 11 to midnight. Every creak in the old building felt like a footstep. Every car on the street made my chest tighten. I texted one person, Nora. Me. Claire wants to meet. Says it's urgent. Not at my place. Nora, choose a public place with exits. Send me the address. I'll be nearby. Me. The little church garden on 73rd, side gate by the hydrangeas. Nora. I'll see you from the corner. Don't look for me. Just talk. I put on my navy coat. I touched my mother's pearls, then left them on the dresser. Tonight needed no ornaments. The church garden was the kind of quiet that makes you whisper even when no one is there. Lamp glow pooled on the path. Hydrangea heads, big as dinner plates, leaned into the night. I listened for Claire's heels before I saw her. Mom, she breathed. I turned. My daughter looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. The white suit from the gate was gone. She wore a long gray sweater, leggings, sneakers. Her hair was tied back badly, strands coming loose. She clutched a tote bag like it was a life vest. She hurried to me and then stopped, hands hovering as if she wanted to hug me and was afraid to be refused. I didn't move.
Not yet.
I'm sorry, she blurted, eyes bright with fear. I'm sorry for the dress. I'm sorry for the things I said. I thought I was being strong. I was being stupid. I need your help. Sit, I said softly. We sat on a stone bench by the hydrangeas. I could feel, more than see, where Nora would be, across the street, in a shadow, part of the city's bones. Tell me everything. Claire swallowed. She gripped the tote tighter. Ethan is broke, she said. Like, not cash flow type broke. Like, he lied to investors and took short-term loans broke. He needed the wedding to go through so he could look stable, raise another round, cover the holes. I waited. Quiet pulls truth from the throat. He started picking vendors who gave him kickbacks, she said. He told me it was how events work. Then he had me sign things. Just routine bride paperwork, he said. But some of it was loans. And then she looked down at her hands. I signed a personal guarantee. Cold moved up my spine. On what? A bridge loan. She winced. $500,000. I breathed in, breathed out. Under your name only? He said it needed a second signature, she whispered. He put your name on it. I thought you signed, Mom. It looks like your signature. My voice stayed steady, because someone had to. He forged it. She nodded, shame flooding her face. I know. I found copies in his desk. I took photos. She lifted the tote. There's more. Emails. Ledger prints. I copied everything. If this gets out, he'll blame me. He already tried. After the gala, he said I ruined his life. He said if I didn't fix it by Monday, he would. Her voice broke. He said I would learn what real regret feels like. I didn't realize my hand had reached for hers until I felt her fingers shake. I held them anyway. They were cold, damp. The way a child's hands feel when a storm has chased them inside. The threats, I said. The notes. The brick. Tears spilled quiet and hot. I knew about the first note, she whispered. I didn't write it, but I didn't stop him. He said he would make you back off so we could focus on the wedding. I thought it was just words. When the brick came, I panicked. I told him it was too far. He laughed. Her whole body trembled. I am so sorry, Mom. I heard the words I had wanted for weeks. They didn't erase the harm, but they opened a door I had believed was sealed shut. I can't undo what I did, she went on, but I can help fix what he's doing. Take this. She pushed the tote into my lap. It was heavy. If anything happens to me, give it to the police. Or that woman. The one at the gate. Detective Nora Quinn, I said. She's here. Claire's eyes widened. She turned, scanning the shadows, then sagged with a little sound that was almost relief. I don't deserve help, she whispered. But I don't want to drown. I squeezed her hand, then stopped swimming toward him. We sat like that for a long minute. The church bell chimed the quarter hour. A bus sighed at the corner and moved on. Somewhere across the street, a cigarette sparked and died. Nora, I thought. Watching, counting, keeping time. Come home with me, I said at last. Tonight. We'll call Nora. We'll make copies. We'll start a file with names and dates. We'll tell the bank about the forged signature. And we will put you behind a wall he cannot climb. She nodded, a quick, desperate little nod that made her look again like the girl who once ran to me when thunder shook the windows. We stood. I tucked the tote under my arm. We walked toward the garden gate. That's when a car rolled slowly past the curb, its windows blacked out, engine too quiet to be a taxi. It didn't stop. It didn't speed. It just measured the block and turned the corner. Claire reached for my arm. Her fingers dug in. Was that? Eyes forward, I said, my voice even. We're not alone. We stepped onto the sidewalk. Headlights from another car cut across us and kept going. Two men laughed on the opposite corner and kept walking. A delivery cyclist swerved around us and kept pedaling. The city kept being the city, but my skin felt the prickling of being watched. We made it to the end of the block. The crosswalk light blinked to walk. We stepped off the curb. Left, said a voice like a match lighting.
Nora.
She slid out of a doorway like she had been carved into it. No badge. No handcuffs. Just that quiet, precise authority. Don't turn around, she said. They're trying to see if you run.
Don't run.
We're going to your place, Margaret. I want you on your ground with your locks and your cameras. Claire, keep your head down and your hood up. Smile at no one. Say nothing to anyone. We followed orders. The walk felt like a tightrope. Nora stayed on our shadow. At my building's door, she unlocked it with a key I didn't know she had. Super let me copy his, she said without looking back. Don't scold me. I didn't. I was grateful. We rode the elevator in silence. On my floor, Nora paused, tilted her head, listened. Then nodded.
Clear.
Inside, we didn't turn on the overhead lights. Just the lamp in the study, warm and small. It felt like a circle we could stand inside. Bag, Nora said. I set the tote on the desk. She snapped on thin gloves and opened it. Out came a laptop, a zip folder of printouts, a small leather notebook, a phone I didn't recognize. Burner, Claire said quietly. He kept it hidden. I found it in his gym bag. Nora didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth twitched the way a violin string does when it knows a note is about to be perfect. Good girl. She flipped open the notebook. Names. Numbers. Little arrows. Dollar signs.
Dates.
Okay, she said. We don't have to prove the ocean's wet. We just have to show a judge our hands are soaked. Claire, I want you to tell me, on record, what you signed and when.
Dates.
Rooms. Who was there? We will add your statement to this paper trail. Margaret, you call your bank officer and alert him to the forged co-signature. I'll package this for an emergency injunction in the morning. I picked up the phone. My bank officer answered, because he always answered. There are people in this world who regard time as flexible. He was not one of them. This is Margaret Hollingsworth, I said, voice level. I need to report a forged signature and halt any transfer requests bearing my name since June. He didn't argue. He asked 3 questions, then said 12 words that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Hollingsworth, there is a pending transfer for midnight. My throat tightened. From which account? From the Hollingsworth Ward event account, he said. It's labeled as vendor consolidation, but it routes to a shell I've never seen. Execution set for midnight. A pause. I can place a temporary hold if you file the form. How long will hold by us? Nora asked, now at my shoulder. Hours, he said on speaker. Not days. And I'll need your physical signature. What time is it? I asked. He told me. We had 52 minutes. Nora was already moving. Grab IDs. Claire, hood up. Margaret, purse. We're going to the bank. They have a 24-hour desk for large transfer verification. We sign, we freeze. We live to write affidavits in the morning. We left the study light on. It felt like a candle we would come back to. In the elevator, Claire whispered, what if he's there? Then he learns we don't scare in lobbies, Nora said. We slid into Nora's car. She drove like a metronome, steady, precise, never wasting motion. Manhattan moved around us in streaks of yellow and red. The clock on the dashboard clicked 1 minute forward. 48. At the bank, the security guard recognized me. There are small mercies in the world, and one of them is being old enough that people remember your face and open doors. Ms. Hollingsworth, he said. Everything all right? Not yet, I said. But it will be. He led us to the night office. Lights hummed. A glass wall separated the lobby from the desks. A sign read after hours transfers and verifications. A woman in a navy vest looked up, saw my expression, and buzzed us in. I gave my name. She pulled the form. I wrote. I signed. She checked the signature against a file got from a drawer only managers touch. Nora slid a sheet across the desk, her own affidavit as a sworn officer, retired but always a witness. Claire signed her statement with hands that shook and then didn't. The clerk typed. The clock moved. 31. Okay, the clerk said. The transfer is flagged. I'm sending the hold request to the operator overseeing the batch. They'll have to accept it on their end. Who is on call? Nora asked. The clerk checked the board. Mr. Delgado. Nora pulled out her phone. I know him, she said. We did a fraud talk together at his old branch. She dialed. He answered. She said 12 clean words. He said 5 better ones. Send me the memo. I'll hit pause. The clerk printed the memo. Nora read it, nodded, handed it back. The clerk scanned. The system hummed. Hold placed, the clerk said. But it's temporary. You'll need a judge's order to make it stick past morning. We'll have it, Nora said. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time all night. Claire put her face in her hands and sobbed once, just once, then lifted her head, eyes raw but steady. Thank you, she whispered. To the clerk. To Nora.
To me.
We turned to leave the office. That's when the glass door hissed open from the lobby side. Ethan Ward walked in like a man who still believed the world belonged to him if he smiled hard enough. His tie was gone, his shirt sleeves rolled, his jaw rough with the anger of a man whose reflection had stopped obeying him.
He looked at me.
He looked at Claire. He didn't even blink at Nora. You're too late, he said softly, almost kindly. You should have stayed home, Margaret. Nora stepped half a pace forward, her palm up, gentle but immovable. Turn around, Ethan. He smiled wider. You think a hold will stop me? You think a signature stops a wire I built? You don't know where the second pipe goes. He lifted his phone. On the screen, a countdown ticked in blue numbers. 12 minutes and 14 seconds. Midnight isn't your deadline, he murmured. It's mine. And when the clock hits 0, you lose more than money. Claire's voice was a whisper I barely heard. What did you do? Ethan's eyes flicked to her. For a heartbeat, something like pity moved through his face. Then it was gone. I secured my future, he said. Behind him, the glass door slid shut with a soft sigh. I heard the lock catch. Nora's voice dropped to a tone I'd never heard. What did you plant, Ethan? He tilted his head. The countdown glowed brighter. 11 minutes and 49 seconds. The question, he said, isn't what I planted. It's where. He took one step back, his thumb hovering over the screen. And every light in the night office flickered. The light snapped off for a heartbeat, then on again, buzzing faintly. In that single flicker, my blood turned to ice. Ethan stood at the center of the bank lobby, his phone glowing like a fuse. The countdown ticked mercilessly. 11 minutes and 32 seconds. Don't, Nora said, her voice level controlled. The kind of voice that had talked men off ledges and into handcuffs. Ethan, you're bluffing. You've got no leverage left. You lost the venue. You lost the girl. You're losing the money. All you've got left is a timer and fear. His eyes gleamed. Fear moves faster than wire transfers. Let me prove it. He raised the phone higher so we could all see. An app pulsed with a blinking red. Beside it, an address. I squinted. My chest seized. It was my building's address. Claire gasped. No. That's right, Ethan said softly, his grin widening. You think you've cornered me, Margaret? While you've been sipping coffee with your pet detective here, I've been busy. I had insurance built into this. My guys wired your precious apartment. You wanted to embarrass me at the gates, old woman? Then you'll watch your empire burn. The clock ticked down, 10 minutes and 49 seconds. I felt the world tilt. My home, my books, my photographs. My memories of Claire as a child, pressed into scrapbooks. All of it gone, unless, where? Nora snapped, stepping closer. Where in the building? Guess, Ethan said smugly. You've got 10 minutes. Claire's hands flew to her hair. Ethan, please.
Stop this.
You don't need to do this. Don't I? He turned on her, his voice sharp, venomous. Do you know what your mother did to me? She humiliated me in front of the whole city. Do you know how many investors pulled out in the last 48 hours? Do you know what that means? It means you're a fraud, I said quietly. And frauds burn themselves long before they burn others. His face twisted. He lunged a step closer to me, but Nora intercepted, her arm out like a steel bar. Back. Up. The countdown ticked. 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Ethan, I said, my voice calm even though my knees threatened to buckle. Look at me. His eyes snapped to mine. You think destroying me will save you? It won't. All it will do is prove to every camera, every headline, every judge that you're nothing but a petty criminal. You'll go down as the man who tried to blow up an old woman's home. That's your legacy? For the briefest moment, his jaw wavered. Doubt flickered across his face. But then he tightened his grip on the phone. Legacy is written by survivors. And I don't plan on being the one in ashes. Nora moved fast. In a blink, her hand shot out toward the phone. But Ethan anticipated it. He jerked his hand back, smirk curling. Nice try, detective. He tapped the screen. The red pulsed brighter. The timer jumped ahead. 7 minutes and 55 seconds. Claire screamed.
No.
Ethan. Nora cursed under her breath. He's accelerating it. I felt my breath lock. We didn't have time to argue. We didn't have time for clever words. We needed to act. Claire, I whispered, pulling her toward me. Listen. Where did he keep his backups? You said you saw files. You said you saw ledgers. Her eyes darted, wild. His laptop. His burner phone. And the app. The app. She nodded frantically. He bragged he coded it himself. He's not as smart as he thinks, Mom. It's not encrypted. He reused passwords. I saw them. I memorized one. Hope flickered, faint but real. Nora grabbed Claire by the shoulders. Do you remember it exactly? Claire nodded, trembling. Nora pulled the burner from the tote. Give it to me. She powered it on. The same app blinked back. A duplicate of Ethan's phone screen, same countdown, same red. Ethan froze. His smile faltered.
No.
No, you don't know how to. Password, Nora barked. Claire whispered it. Sunset 1987. Nora typed fast. The screen unlocked. And there it was, the code. The detonator. The app's control panel. Ethan lunged. Give me that. Nora twisted, using his momentum against him. He crashed against the counter, his phone clattering to the floor. The countdown glared. 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Nora's fingers flew. She navigated menus, Claire whispering directions. Scroll down. Disable the secondary pipe. Delete the key. Ethan roared. He clawed for the phone, but I stepped in front of him. 82 years old, trembling but unmovable. You will not touch her, I said. And for the first time, he hesitated. Because maybe he finally saw me, not as an old woman, not as a burden, but as a wall. Got it. Nora shouted. The app screen blinked. The red disappeared. The countdown froze at 4 minutes and 3 seconds. Claire collapsed into the chair, sobbing. It's over. But Nora's face was still stone. Not yet. She slammed the phone down, pinned Ethan's arm behind his back, and hissed in his ear. Game's over, Ward. I'll deliver you myself. He struggled once, then sagged, the fight draining out of him. The bank clerk, pale and shaking, called security. Within minutes, the guards arrived, then the police. They cuffed Ethan, read him his rights, and dragged him out into the flashing red and blue night. The whole time, he never looked at Nora. Never at the cops. Only at me. You'll regret this, Margaret, he spat as they shoved him into the cruiser. She'll hate you forever. But when I turned, Claire wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me, her eyes wet, her face pale, and for the first time in years, full of something I thought I'd lost forever. Fear, yes, but also love. Back in my apartment, hours later, we sat side by side on the couch. The temporary pain still covered the broken window. The brick still sat on the mantel, silent. Claire leaned against me, her head heavy on my shoulder. I almost lost everything, she whispered. And I almost lost you. You did lose me, I said softly. But maybe you found me again tonight. She closed her eyes, tears sliding down. Can you forgive me? I didn't answer right away. I looked at the quilt from her childhood still folded on the chair, at the pearls on my dresser, at the gold-threaded seams of resilience shimmering in my memory. Finally, I kissed the top of her head. Forgiveness isn't free, Claire. It's earned. But tonight, you took the first step. She clung tighter. And for the first time in a long, long time, I let myself hope. But hope is fragile. And as I drifted toward sleep, my phone buzzed with a new message. No name. No number. Just words. Ethan isn't the only one. He had partners. And they're still out there. The text glowed on my phone screen like a curse. Ethan isn't the only one. He had partners. And they're still out there. My throat tightened. I sat in the dark of my living room, the city humming faintly beyond the cracked window, the weight of Claire's head still against my shoulder. She had finally fallen asleep, her breath shallow but steady, her fingers still clutched around mine like a child refusing to let go. I should have turned the phone off. I should have let her rest, let myself rest. But the words wouldn't stop burning. Partners. Still out there. It was not over. At dawn, Nora knocked. She didn't bother with pleasantries, just walked in, took one look at me, and said, "You didn't sleep." "Neither did you," I replied. She smirked faintly. "Fair." Then she held up her phone. I got the same message. They want us rattled. They succeeded. She pulled out a chair. Ethan didn't work alone. His shell companies were too polished. The contractors, the fake vendors, those took more than one man. I'd bet good money some of his investors were in on it. That means they won't let him rot alone. Someone's already moving to cover tracks. Or silence voices. I glanced at Claire, still asleep on the couch. Her face was puffy, her hair tangled, her expression fragile. She looked nothing like the woman who had mocked me at the gala. She looked like my daughter again. A lost one. A frightened one. "They'll come for her," I said. Nora nodded. "And maybe for you." That afternoon, the headlines shifted again. Ward arrested on fraud, threat charges. More investors under investigation. Source: others involved in scheme. The world buzzed with speculation, but in my apartment, the air was still. Too still. I spent the day pacing, memories swirling. The shredded dress. The gala. The brick. The countdown clock. Every piece led to this. People who thought I was weak, disposable, irrelevant. I wasn't. And I wouldn't let Claire be either. At nightfall, the knock came. Not Nora's. Too soft. Too hesitant. I opened the door to find a man in a gray suit, his face forgettable in the way that means it's been trained to be. "Mrs. Hollingsworth," he said smoothly. "I represent parties interested in resolving this matter quietly. Ethan may have overstepped, but the bigger picture, well, it's not your concern. Sign a non-disclosure agreement. Return the files your daughter took. And this all goes away. No more threats. No more trouble." He held out an envelope. The kind that smelled of danger. I stared at him. "And if I don't?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You don't want to find out." The door closed in his face. Inside, I dialed Nora. "They've sent someone," I whispered. "Slick suit. Envelope. Wants me to stay quiet." Her reply was instant. "Good. That means they're nervous. We'll use that." "What do we do?" She hesitated. Then, softly, "We set the trap." The trap was Eleanor's idea, though she would never call it that. Over tea in her parlor, she leaned back against silk cushions, her diamonds catching the lamplight. "Let them believe you're desperate," she said. "Invite them into the open. Promise them silence in exchange for guarantees. They'll come. They always do. But don't meet them alone. You'll need witnesses. You'll need light." "And where do I find light strong enough to expose men who live in shadows?" I asked. She smiled. "Darling, you know where. Hudson Crest. My ballroom is already primed for a show. Saturday night, The same hall where Claire's wedding was meant to bloom became a stage once again. This time, not for music and champagne. For justice. The chandelier burned gold. Cameras, discreet but present, lined the corners. Press invited under the guise of a follow-up gala. Nora's contacts stood in the crowd, plainclothes officers blending among the guests. Eleanor floated through like a queen hosting a coronation. And I, dressed in black silk, my pearls gleaming like a crown, stood at the center of it all. When the men arrived, the gray-suited messenger, another with cold eyes, a third with a smirk that belonged to backrooms, they believed they were stepping into a negotiation. They weren't. "You have the files?" the gray-suited man asked, his voice hushed. "I do," I said, my voice carrying. "And you'll never touch them again." Confusion flickered across his face. Then the lights brightened. Cameras flashed. And Nora stepped forward, badge glinting. "This conversation," she said, "is being recorded. Gentlemen, consider this your final warning. Every threat, every fraud, every forged signature, it's over." The crowd hushed. Eleanor lifted her glass. The men froze, cornered by the eyes of the city itself. Claire stepped out from behind me then. Not in white, not in gold, but in a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back, her face pale but steady. "This is my mother," she said, her voice breaking but clear. "You tried to silence her. You tried to use me. But tonight, we're the ones speaking." Gasps rippled. Some clapped. Cameras flashed again. And for the first time, I saw her stand not as my ungrateful daughter, but as my ally. The arrests came swiftly after that. The men led away, their smirks gone. The papers filed. The evidence sealed. Ethan's partners, unmasked at last. The world would remember the scandal as a fall from grace for financiers. But I would remember it as something simpler. The night I finally stopped being afraid of being old-fashioned. Because dignity is never out of fashion. Weeks later, I stood again in front of Resilience, now displayed at the Met in a special wing. Crowds gathered around, whispering of the story. The torn lace gleamed with its golden seams. The wound, now art. Beside me, Claire slipped her hand into mine. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. I squeezed her fingers. "No, darling. But you're learning to." And for the first time in years, I believed we might find our way back. The gala lights faded in memory. The pearls still rested on my collarbone. The lessons lingered sharper than any headline. Never let them call you weak. Never let them write your story for you. And when they tear you apart, stitch yourself back together in gold.